Welcome back. It is that time. It is Fantasy Football 2025. One of my favorite videos to do each year. I usually do one fantasy video. I put everything into one. I'm not really like a fantasy football content creator, but I definitely know enough. So I went through last year's video. It was fire. Like if you went off my video, which I don't know why you would, but hey, if you did, there were some great picks on there. Leave a like and leave in the comments, who's the one player you are just betting everything on? Like, who's the one guy you think is going to have a great year? I would love to see that in the comments. So hope you guys enjoy, and let's get into it. League winner number one, Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. He did miss majority of September and October last year with a PCL sprain, so he's one of those guys that if you drafted him early, you might have missed the playoffs and didn't reap the benefits of him having a big second half. But when he did return in Week 8, he was arguably the best receiver in fantasy, not named Jamar Chase. If we extrapolated his final 10 games of 2024 over a full season, it's an insane stat line of 127 catches, over 1,600 receiving yards, but only 5 touchdowns. That, of course, has to get better. And for those concerned that they are adding Davante Adams to the Rams roster, I would not be too concerned. We know about the Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp connection, which arguably was the best in the NFL for a bit. But when Puka Nacua had that great stretch at the end of last year, Cooper Kupp was on the field, so I wouldn't be all that concerned. Puka was number 1 in yards per route run last year by a large margin, exceeding the number 2 ranked A.J. Brown by more than a half a yard. He was even ranked first in the newly coveted for fantasy football. This is a big stat apparently. The first down per routes run metric, which has been a reliable indicator of future breakouts in fantasy football. Puka was number 1. And for those who care, I know some people just hate PFF, but he was PFF's number 1 ranked wide receiver in 2024. He should start to see a positive touchdown regression considering he's only at 1.3%, which is below league average for his career. And I just feel like if we get a healthy Matthew Stafford season, which may not be guaranteed, but hopefully it is, we may be looking at a 120 catch season for Puka Nacua here in year 3. So I think it's a massive year for him if he stays on the field, if Matthew Stafford stays healthy, all those type of things. But at the end of the day, everybody can get hurt. It's fantasy football. We're playing to win championships, and I feel like not many guys have a higher ceiling than Puka. So if you get him in like early round 2, slam dunk. Just take that. Number 2 league winner. I was low on this guy last year because I was very concerned about the injury history, and ironically, he's already kind of hurt. But Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. Now, if he ends up being ruled out for like the first couple weeks or something by the time you're drafting, obviously you should probably just not draft him and move on and take someone safe like Josh Jacobs or something, who I'm fine with this year. But assuming he's fine, which I hope he is, and they're playing it safe, Achane played in 17 games last year, every game. I think he left a couple early, but still played in every game. Finished as the RB7 in 2024. I didn't have him as a bust once again, but I was just too scared to, I was bitch made. I just didn't have him as a league winner. So after putting up an unsustainable 7.8 yards per carry in 2023 as a rookie, he was still above league average last year at 4.5 yards per carry behind a pretty awful Dolphins offensive line. And Achane really thrived in the passing game. He caught 78 passes, which was a surprise, for 592 yards and 6 touchdowns all through the air. So he was putting up like mid-tier tight end numbers basically just as a running back in the receiving game. It was pretty impressive. But to make that sound even more encouraging, his numbers took a huge drop off in the receiving game, and I guess rushing too, in the 6 games that Tua Tagovailoa was inactive. Of course, he missed 4 games on IR with a concussion, and he missed the final 2 games of last year. I forget why. I don't know if it was an injury or they just sat him out. But anyway, in the 11 games with Tua last year, Achane saw a whopping 6.6 targets per game. In the 6 games without Tua last year, Achane just saw 1.8 targets per game. So 6.6 per game with Tua, 1.8 without him. So while hoping for a healthy Tua season is risky, as I said, we're here to win championships. We're going for the ceiling. It's about taking risk in fantasy. Achane was averaging 22.5 fantasy points per game when Tua was on the field, which for reference is a higher points per game number than Saquon Barkley last season, the guy who had 2,000 yards in one people leagues. So getting this guy in like mid round 2, late round 2, if your league mates are concerned and he falls to round 3 even, I feel like you have to take him. He's 23 years old. He's just a game-wrecking talent. And I know you have to hope that Tua and Achane himself stay healthy, but if they do, you're talking about a guy who could be a top 3 running back, and you're getting that at a pretty decent price. League winner number 3, T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, usually I'm not a T. Higgins guy. Like, I don't think I've ever drafted him in like his 5 other NFL seasons, but I'm trying to draft here with my brain, not my heart. And I know T. Higgins is a guy who is a candidate for soft tissue injuries, hamstring and strains and all that crap. But usually he'll miss maybe like 3-4 games, and he might be a decoy for 1 game per year. But when the guy plays, he is just tremendous. And as I said, I'm trying to win championships. I want the guys who, when they're out there, are going to be big difference makers. 26 years old, set up in a terrific spot. The Bengals defense looks no better than last year, and the Bengals have the highest pass rate over expectation in the NFL last year, and that should not change at all with a healthy Joe Burrow. Higgins averaged the 2nd most points per game last season for all wide receivers, only trailing his teammate Jamar Chase and tied with Justin Jefferson. So once again, when the guy played last year, he was a top 3 wide receiver on average. Like, that is what you want. Higgins' numbers last year over a 17-game pace would give you 103 catches, 1,290 receiving yards, and 14 touchdowns. In his 12 games last season that he played, he saw at least 8 targets in 8 of them and double-digit targets in 6 out of 12. So as I'm saying, when the guy plays, he's elite. I think he's a very good football player, alpha wide receiver, and he'll be on a team with an elite quarterback that has to pass a lot because this defense is not getting any better. And at least for the Bengals, they played in the preseason this year, so like they shouldn't get off to that horrible start as they always do. But once again, if you had Higgins last year, he put up some monster weeks. There was a week he put up 24.8 in half PPR, 25.3. He had a 15-point game, 17-point game, 34-point game. I think that was that big Chargers game in primetime. But that's the thing, like, you want guys like that in your lineup. If you have that in your lineup, you're most likely going to win. So a guy that can, like, single-handedly win you weeks as long as the rest of your lineup doesn't crap the bed. League winner number 4 is Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks. Walker, like Higgins, you have some of those injury concerns of, like, soft tissue and missing 3 or 4 games a year, but another guy that when he plays, he could be really good. So that's what I want. Excitement this year is that Clint Kubiak is now the offensive coordinator for Seattle. It's a perfect scheme fit for a guy like Kenneth Walker. On outside zone attempts, which Seattle will primarily run this year, Walker averages 4.5 yards per carry for his career. Now, I know people are concerned about Zach Charbonnet, his backup. He filled in last year at times and had some monster weeks, but Charbonnet only averages 3.6 yards per carry on outside zone attempts. So in this style offense, he has just not been great throughout his career. And we've seen this happen before. Like, I think Dameon Pierce is a great example. Dameon Pierce had that great rookie season, came out of nowhere basically, and then they brought in the new OC, Bobby Slowick, I think it was. They changed the offense, and then it just didn't fit what Pierce was doing, so Pierce just faded to the back. They brought in Joe Mixon, and now Pierce's career is, I don't want to say it's over. He was actually not bad on an efficiency basis last year, but point is, sometimes when you bring in a new offensive coordinator and change up your running scheme, it can just really hamper guys, and Zach Charbonnet, he might be a candidate for that. When you look at rushing yards gained on explosive plays, which is 15 plus yards, from 2022 to 2024, Walker ranks top 5 in the league. So this is a guy who can be a home run hitter, but he also is a guy that can have yards after contact, make guys miss. And speaking of, so despite missing 6 games last season, Walker had the most broken tackles among all running backs in 2024. More than Derrick Henry, more than insert name here. Guys that played every single game last year. This guy missed 6 games and had the most broken tackles in football last year. That's very impressive. So in this same offense with Kubiak last year, Alvin Kamara on the Saints had his best rushing efficiency in 4 seasons. So we know Kamara had somewhat of a resurgence last year, but a lot of that was because of Kubiak being his offensive coordinator. And if you give majority of the carries here to Kenneth Walker, a guy that can just break off big plays and break tackles, and he's a pretty good receiver as well, I feel like this guy can be an RB1 this year. You just have to stay healthy, of course. That's the big concern. But a guy who in round 4, I have no problem taking. League winner number 5, Marvin Harrison Jr. And I know there's a lot of people, a lot of smart people in the fantasy community that don't like Marvin Harrison Jr. And I kind of feel a little nervous about this one, and I'm kind of putting my nuts on the table here. But I think he's going to have a bounce back year, like a breakout year. He was wide receiver 32 last year, and he was the former 4th overall pick. And the Cardinals have to reflect this entire offseason and be like, how can we get the most out of Marvin Harrison Jr., because they clearly did not do it last year. He had his games. He had that monster game. I think it was week 2 against the Rams. He had the 3 touchdowns, and that looked great. There were some games where Harrison looked like the 4th overall pick, but plenty more where he was invisible or just not on the same page with Kyler Murray. And speaking of Kyler, Harrison led the NFL last year in uncatchable targets and was top 10 in air yards as well. And even though his rookie year was somewhat successful, he's still not satisfied. This guy put on 11 pounds of muscle during the offseason. He came back looking noticeably stronger. That should help him a lot. He did come down with 8 touchdowns last year, so in the red zone, the guy is still going to be a threat. And if he really gets the targets that I think he can get and get some more accurate targets, then those 8 touchdowns can maybe turn into 12 or 13 if things actually break right. Kyler Murray already said that they will be better in year 2 together. The chemistry has improved. I choose to believe it. And we did see some moments of them having chemistry last year, some back shoulder throws and plays where Kyler was getting out of the pocket and kind of had the point downfield and he would have to throw it deep. Like there was a play in that Rams game where Kyler escaped to his left and was pretty much almost out of bounds, but then found Harrison down the left sideline deep. So those things can happen. I hope it happens more. And really the only competition for targets is Trey McBride, another guy that I do like and had him as a breakout last year. I don't really love taking tight ends in the 3rd round. I mean, I'll talk about that maybe in a different video talking about like different philosophies and whatnot. So I don't really want to take a tight end round 3. But yeah, aside from McBride, the Cardinals really have nothing else. I mean, unless you buy into a Michael Wilson breakout finally, which yeah, I've had my moments of believing in Michael Wilson, but those days are over. I just don't really, I'm not holding my breath. And I also like the fact that Arizona only has 4 outdoor games the entire year, so that should bode well for their passing offense. They have an easy schedule. I think a lot of things line up nicely for Harrison. I don't think he's bad. I think he was a highly touted wide receiver for a reason. I don't think it's only because of the last name. There are things he does that are very impressive, and he can be a great red zone threat. So I'm looking to draft him. If he falls to round 5, I would take him there. I know some platforms have him higher than others. I know on Yahoo, where I like to draft, he's ranked pretty damn high, which is annoying. But there are other platforms where you can maybe get him in round 5, round 6. So if you can do that, I would take Harrison. He is just a guy who I think fits that category for potential league winner. Like he's young, number 1 target in his offense potentially, great in the red zone, high touchdown potential, things like that. So that's a guy I want to take. League winner number 6. I had him on here last year. It had its moments, but didn't really turn out the way I wanted to. George Pickens. So had Pickens stayed in Pittsburgh and not went to Dallas, which was a perfect landing spot, I would not have him on this list. I think going to Dallas was the perfect fit for George Pickens. I just love it. And in fantasy football, we tend to focus on volume, which is big. Of course, volume, and you want to combine that with talent, which I think Pickens has, but volume is very important. So here's why I bring that up. Last year, Pittsburgh ranked 29th in the NFL in total pass attempts with 499 as a team. Dallas, on the other hand, finished 3rd in the NFL with 637 pass attempts. So that's 138 more pass attempts for Dallas as compared to Pittsburgh, and that means they passed the ball about 8 extra times per game than Pittsburgh did. This is an offense. I know there's new coaches and whatnot. They're still going to throw the ball a ton. Have you seen the Dallas Cowboys running back depth chart? I mean, they're going to pass the ball a lot. Their defense still sucks. It's kind of set up like T. Higgins in a way. Like T. Higgins, you're the number 2 in your offense, a great wide receiver next to you. You have I don't want to say great quarterback, but Dak is a pretty good quarterback. I just don't want to compare him to Joe Burrow and get people upset. And you have a bad defense. Like, they're going to be passing the ball a ton. I just like the situation here for George Pickens, and it's a contract year, which I love that for a guy like Pickens. And definitely has the potential to have spike weeks. Like, he's a guy that can have 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and it wouldn't really surprise me too much. So Pickens is a guy that can, like, win you your week. With the volume increase, I just think Pickens is gonna have a great year. He's not drafted like it, but I think he could finish as a top 15 wide receiver. It would not shock me at all. League winner number 7, Calvin Ridley, Tennessee Titans. I really haven't found myself ever gushing over a guy like Calvin Ridley because maybe it was the suspension or just him like leaving mid-season. I just never really trusted him. But it seems like so many times in fantasy football, we have a wide receiver 1 on a bad team with a new quarterback that just greatly benefits. And for some reason, we don't really bake it into like fantasy cost every year. Like, it's very weird. We see this all the time. Terry McLaurin last year, Cortland Sutton last year, Steve Smith when Cam Newton was a rookie, Reggie Wayne when Andrew Luck was a rookie, DeAndre Hopkins with Deshaun Watson his rookie year. I know he missed half the season, but still. Like, these wide receiver 1s, when they bring in these big quarterback upgrades, which probably no one had a worse quarterback room than the Tennessee Titans last year. Now you bring in Cam Ward, and it can just be such a big difference in terms of like quarterback play and quarterback talent in this room. Both Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, it was terrible. And despite that, Calvin Ridley still finished with over 1,000 yards last year. He led the league last year in air yards with 1,883, unrealized air yards with 1,097, and second in explosive receiving plays with 22. He was third in deep targets with 32. And if he just had a better quarterback, these unrealized air yards and things like that would be converted way more. And if you look at Cameron Ward and what he was good at Miami, it was passing deep. So it's like, this is a perfect marriage. You have a guy in Ridley that can beat guys downfield, earn targets downfield, and now instead of having Will Levis and Mason Rudolph throwing a deep ball, it's Cam Ward. He still gets open at a high rate. He's a great route runner. He's been durable throughout his career, aside from like the suspension and the taking off midseason thing. And assuming Cam Ward lives up to that number 1 pick, then I'd think that Calvin Ridley blows his ADP out of the water. I don't see how it doesn't happen. League winner number 8, Teteroa McMillan of the Carolina Panthers, 8th overall pick in April's draft. And it's easy to see why. You have the route running, you have the jump ball, contested catches, all those things. Like, he is just a prototypical wide receiver 1, has that size, and kind of reminded me of AJ Green a bit. And some people say, as a more recent comparison, Drake London. That makes sense too. We know about Bryce Young's mini second half breakout last year, which was nice to see. I felt happy for that kid. But the Panthers do need somebody to be an alpha in this offense. It could be Xavier Legette. I'm not counting on it. He's a little inconsistent. And then you have guys like Jalen Coker, more of a slot receiver. Adam Thielen is rumored to be traded. I don't really fear Adam Thielen too much. And in Dave Canales' offense with the Buccaneers in 2023, Mike Evans led the league in touchdowns in 2023. So not to make a direct comparison, because I don't want to call McMillan a future Hall of Famer like Mike Evans, but he's going to play the same role, that X receiver role in the same offense. And Bryce Young is not afraid to give his receivers chances downfield, and I think McMillan can easily see like a 25% target share in this offense. And luckily for the people like myself that want McMillan at a fair draft price, he did drop a touchdown in preseason, although it was more of him like not getting his head turned in time. Like, it was in his chest, but he just didn't get his head turned. It was actually like a great anticipation throw by Bryce Young, and it seemed like McMillan knew right away, like, hey, that was my bad, so they'll fix that stuff up. And he has like this little hamstring minor injury going on, which I do, concerns me a little bit, of course, but I'm assuming it's just precaution, and he'll be fine, hopefully. So I'm still looking to take him. And I feel good about this Panthers team having a respectable offense, and I think that this Young to McMillan connection will be the headliner of it. So I do like taking chances on rookies. My next 2 guys on this breakout list are also rookies. So McMillan's a guy that if you can get him as like your wide receiver 3, of course, that would be great. Even as a wide receiver 2, yeah, it's fine. I think he's going to have over 1,000 yards, probably around 8 touchdowns. Like, he'll have a fine year. So I'm fine with Teteroa McMillan as your wide receiver 2. Number 9 league winner, Travion Henderson. And I kind of just talked about how you want McMillan's price to be suppressed. It's not really the same case here with Henderson, who over the past 2 weeks has had just this insane rise in ADP. It makes sense. The guy had a 100-yard kickoff return on his first NFL touch. And for me, it's more of like, yes, they drafted him pretty high, but it's also that Ramondre Stevenson led the NFL in fumbles last year, and this is a new regime. Like, they just took this guy 38th overall. Ramondre fumbles, Antonio Gibson fumbles. I highly doubt Mike Vrabel wants a guy that's going to fumble the ball. Like, he seems like a guy that's a no-nonsense type coach. And not only did Travion Henderson lead the Big Ten in yards per carry last season, but he also finished 4th in receptions on Ohio State's national championship team. So the guy is a good pass catcher from what we've seen. I know one Patriots beat reporter said that he might already be the best deep threat that the Patriots have, which is pretty sad to say for the rest of their receivers. And if you've watched the Patriots over the past, like 5 years maybe, no team needs an explosive player more than this organization. It felt like Devontae Parker went there, and ever since it's just like, yeah, we're not taking explosive players. It's just been kind of weird. But Travion Henderson, a guy that we've seen it on wheel routes in practice, he can beat guys deep. It's just like the guy is so explosive. That kickoff return for 100 yards once again. And also for Ramondre Stevenson, his efficiency has been dropping off every year. I'm really not that concerned about Antonio Gibson. He might play third downs here and there, but overall, not that concerned. It also helps that New England, they revamped their offensive line in the offseason. I think it was Garrett Bradbury and Morgan Moses at right tackle. Then, of course, left tackle Will Campbell. And Henderson's a great pass blocker himself, which is a common concern for rookie running backs. It's like, oh, can the guy pass block? Which it seems like there's no problem at all here for Henderson. I know he might not ever play 80+% of snaps, but I would be really shocked if he's not playing at least 60% of the snaps by like week 3 or something. I always think that talent rises to the top, the cream rises to the top. I believe in that stuff, and I just don't think this organization is stupid. Like if Henderson is outplaying Gibson and Stevenson by that much, which I think he will, then at some point, probably sooner than later, he will be the RB1 on this team and has a chance to put up some big numbers. Final league winner number 10. I'm going 10-10-10. So it's 10 league winners, 10 busts, 10 sleepers. I want to keep things more organized this year. I feel like the last few years I kind of just put out a bunch of names. I want to put a cap on it this year. So anyway, number 10, RJ Harvey of the Denver Broncos. And I feel like me in the past buying into Broncos running backs never goes as planned. I love Javonte Williams. That didn't work out too well. I remember drafting Monte Ball back when I was in middle school. We know how that went. And I bought into Royce Freeman during his rookie year, and that did not go well. So I have a bad history with these Bronco running backs, but screw it. Why not go back again? I just see this as a perfect fit. Sean Payton with receiving backs? Check. Bo Nix throwing to running backs? Check. Top 5 offensive line in football? Check. Injury-prone guy ahead of him on the depth chart? Check. I think RJ Harvey checks too many boxes to ignore. And if you look at Sean Payton's history with receiving backs, it is tremendous. Reggie Bush had 88 receptions as a rookie. Darren Sproles, his first season in New Orleans, had 86 catches. Pierre Thomas had a season with 77 catches in 2013. Alvin Kamara had 81 catches as a rookie. And if you look in 2024, which quarterback had the most attempts behind the line of scrimmage? Guess who it is? It's Bo Nix. And now you take into account that J.K. Dobbins, the man ahead of Harvey, has dealt with ACL, Achilles, and MCL injuries in the past. You would assume that at some point in 2025, Harvey will be the lead role. Not sure how long it will be. I'm not sure if Dobbins will sustain a long injury or a short injury or even get injured at all. But chances are, J.K. Dobbins, compared to most other players, has a much higher chance of missing time. Even being 24 years old on draft day, it still was not enough for Denver to be scared off from drafting him in round 2. You know, teams probably don't love taking running backs that are 24 in the draft, but they took him second round, so they love this fit clearly. And so far, Sean Payton has been singing his praises. So I think at some point, RJ Harvey, it might take once again, like Henderson, 2-3 weeks to really gain a big role. But I just think with Sean Payton and his history and the rookie running backs and the receptions, if you play in a PPR league, which I do in most of my leagues, he's a great guy to get. He could be your RB2, and he has the upside to be a league-winning pick, especially if J.K. Dobbins were to miss time. Now the not-so-fun part, the bust players that I think are ranked a bit too high in ADP, guys I just don't end up taking. Number 1 is Breece Hall. Just like other running backs in his class, which was Kyron Williams and James Cook, he has not received an extension yet from the Jets, and the vibes with Breece Hall and the Jets just seem really off right now. I don't know what it is, but it just seems like they praise Braylon Allen so much, and Breece Hall is always tweeting these cryptic things, and it just, I don't know, something seems off. I don't like it, which I guess if he was to get traded to like a team like Dallas, I mean, Breece Hall would be a great value, so that could end up being something that happens. But with this new coaching staff, it seems like they love Allen once again. They want to mix in that Isaiah Davis as well. So there's a chance this could be a 3-headed backfield, but I feel like at best it's going to be split 50-50. And I like Breece Hall a lot from a talent standpoint. Like, he was so good his first 2 years, but Aaron Glenn seems super committed to this committee approach, and him, of course, coming over from the Lions, and so has the Jets offensive coordinator. So they're coming over from a team that saw Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery the past couple of years be like amazing and just be one of the best running back tandems in football. And if the Jets were a good offense, I would say fine, but the fact that Breece Hall is probably not going to see nearly as many goal line attempts as Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I just have a problem taking him as high as he is. And what if Braylon Allen takes the goal line touches? He's bigger. They always compliment his physical running style, so if Braylon Allen becomes the goal line back and Breece Hall becomes like this in-between the 20s type guy, aside from his receiving, what are you really getting from Breece Hall? Like, he could have a season of, once again, he had 70 catches back in 2023, so maybe that happens again, but then again, you have now a mobile quarterback in Justin Fields, so some of those moments where a guy like Zach Wilson back in 2023 would throw those dump-offs, a guy like Justin Fields may say, screw it, I'll just take it and run. So those 70 receptions might turn into 45 or 50 with Justin Fields, which is still a fine number, but it ain't 70. And also, Breece Hall's efficiency has declined for 3 straight years. I just have my concerns. I mean, look, I could see a world where maybe this is all coach speak and Braylon Allen doesn't have that much of a role, but I choose to believe it to a degree. I think he will have a role in this team, and I just fear that Breece Hall is not going to have the goal line work. He might be a between the 20s guy. He might not get the same reception totals he did in the past now with Justin Fields at quarterback, and I just could see it all going badly. I just don't see too much upside in his profile, so therefore I have to pass on Breece Hall. Number 2 for a bust is Xavier Worthy. I understand the upside. Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. Rashee Rice suspension is looming. Travis Kelce's old, and Worthy could be a year 2 breakout. But Worthy failed to reach 80 yards in a single regular season game last year. Worthy's definitely known for his elite speed, but Patrick Mahomes ranked 34th in the NFL in intended passing yards per attempt, and overall just not an effective deep ball thrower. Last year was a career low for deep ball passing for Mahomes, only completing 39.5% of his passes on 15 plus yards downfield. And I feel like things broke perfectly for Worthy last year. Rashee Rice was gone basically the entire year after September. Marquise Brown missed pretty much the entire 2024 season till the very end. But Marquise Brown is back now, and he's only 28 years old. I still think he'll have a pretty decent role in this offense. This is per Fantasy Pros. Worthy's per route metrics don't offer a ton of hope, as he was 75th in separation and 86th in route win rate among 112 qualifying receivers last season. I've seen nothing to believe personally that I think he'll be a consistent producer week in and week out. Of course, he'll have his maybe 2, 3, 4 games where he has 25 points and can win you a week, and that's nice, but I just think there will be too many peaks and valleys with a guy like Xavier Worthy. And now let's just say Rashee Rice and that whole suspension thing gets pushed off even more, and that doesn't happen, and now Marquise Brown is back and healthy. You have Travis Kelce playing for maybe one more year. He might have a great final season. I would not be shocked. It just seems like Worthy's this gimmicky player, and I just don't think he'll be a guy who catches like 70 passes and has over 1,000 yards. Like, I could see him getting a high touchdown total, but then again, do I want to bet on touchdowns that are probably going to be from over 50 yards downfield? I mean, not really. I would let somebody else in my league take that risk. Bust number 3, Zay Flowers, and it's hard to call him a bust. I don't want to even call him a bust, but he is in this category for a reason, because I think Zay Flowers gives you a very high baseline, like we know what he's going to be. And I do remember hyping up Zay Flowers as a rookie in the sleeper category, so that paid off, but I think just where he's being drafted and what his ceiling is, it just does not make sense to take him. It's really the team fit. Like, it's a team fit thing. It's just not ideal for him. In the Lamar Jackson era, which dates back to 2018, these were the top 2 wide receiver seasons for Ravens players. 2024 was Zay Flowers, wide receiver 22, finishing as the wide receiver 29 in average points per game. And in 2021, Marquise Brown, who we just talked about, he was the wide receiver 22 and finished as the wide receiver 26 in points per game for wide receivers. So in this Lamar Jackson era, wide receivers don't end up doing too much. The best per game average for a wide receiver was wide receiver 26. Like, that's just not what I want. If I'm drafting in round 5, 6, where Zay Flowers tends to go, I'm drafting a guy that I think can win me a league. I'm not drafting a guy that I think, oh, he might get 70 catches and 900 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, I could find that later. Give me Jacoby Myers later or something like that. Like, I'm not going for that early in drafts. And I think Flowers, no matter what happens, is going to be capped. It's just the way this offense is. Like, even if Mark Andrews got hurt, they have Isaiah Likely to fill in. Like, they have DeAndre Hopkins now, who probably isn't that great anyway, but they did give Rashad Bateman an extension. he's their downfield guy. We saw that happen a few times last year. And Baltimore is just who they are, and I think that's fine for them. If I was the coach and I had Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, I would use them too. Like, I don't blame them for what they're doing. It's just a shame because if you threw Zay Flowers onto like Dallas instead of George Pickens or something, then Zay Flowers might have 90 catches, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns, and I'll be all the way in. But in this Ravens offense, I just can't do it. Number 4 bust is David Montgomery. This one hurts my heart because I've been in on Montgomery ever since he went to Detroit, and he's been great. Like, I can't complain, but I just feel like it's not going to be, the juice will not be worth the squeeze this year for David Montgomery. In his 28 games as a Lion, he's had 25 touchdowns. So it's tough to fade a guy like this, but here's my concerns. He's now 28 years old as a running back, which we know that's kind of the age where guys tend to fall off efficiency-wise. He's had multi-week injuries in the past 2 years. There's a new offensive coordinator in Detroit, John Morton. Frank Ragnow, their center, retired. And what if Jahmyr Gibbs gets more work? Like, we're kind of leaving that part out. It's year 3 for Gibbs. He is maybe the best running back in football, not named Saquon Barkley. And even then, it's like Jahmyr Gibbs on just explosive plays is probably the best running back in football. So what if John Morton comes in here, or what if the Lions offense is struggling and David Montgomery's sitting at 3.4 yards per carry at the end of September, and they're like, screw this, like, let's go to the guy, let's give him 70% of the work instead of 55% of the work. So Gibbs might see an uptick, and then Montgomery just happens to see lower rushing attempts per game because Gibbs is outplaying him. And that's something I think can really happen. I'm not just kind of like talking out of my ass. Like, I think that can really happen. And also, what if the Lions offense takes a bit of a step back? In 2024, the Lions offense tied an NFL record for the most 20-plus point games in a season with 16, and they also tied an NFL record for the most 40-plus point games in a season with 6. And according to StatMuse, the 2024 Lions were ranked 3rd all-time in offensive team touchdowns for a single season. So what happened last year in Detroit was an outlier. They had all these dome games, their defense kind of fell off due to injuries at the end of that year. Their offensive players stayed healthy. It was really just one side of the ball that saw all the injuries. So things broke perfectly for the Lions. And I just think for Montgomery to really have himself a year that's worth taking, he'll need a Jahmyr Gibbs injury or another like outlier touchdown season to overcome the RB20 price that he's at right now. So for those reasons I just laid out, I think there's too many red flags. Now, if Montgomery falls to like round 7, round 8, I'll take him. Like, you know what you're getting here, probably 10 touchdowns and 800 rushing yards or something, but still, I think the ceiling is not as high as it used to be, and that does concern me. Bust number 5, Chris Olave of the Saints. I've been a fan of his for years, but I just can't do it anymore. Like, I'm not trying to draft emotionally, but the guy has just hurt me too many times now. Olave has 5 documented concussions since 2020, and he had 2 last year that forced him to miss 9 games. His quarterback play this year is going to be awful, Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shuck, so I'm not sure how he reaches max potential with those guys at quarterback. I guess Jake Hayner's there too, not that it matters, but he's also there. And lastly, are we sure Rashid Shaheed is not just pretty much as good as Olave at this point? I know Olave, he left 2 games early, but even though Shaheed played 2 less games overall, he still had more fantasy points than Olave in 2024. And even on like a per game basis, Shaheed was the better receiver. He posted higher fantasy points per route run at 0.46 as compared to Olave's 0.44. First read target share, that was in favor of Shaheed by about 7%. And air yard share, which wasn't even close, 48.2% for Shaheed, 24.4% for Olave. That was per fantasy points data. I can see myself maybe buying back into Olave next year, but I have to see him play a full year first and not get concussed again. And if the Saints have a quarterback 1 next year, like someone that I really trust, or whether it's Nussmeier, Arch Manning, someone like that, and I really like those guys, I could see Olave being on this list for 2026 and kind of being like next year's Calvin Ridley, like a guy that gets a quarterback upgrade, is the wide receiver 1 in his offense. Like, I could see that happening. But as for 2025, whether it's due to the injuries or the quarterback play, I'm just not in on Chris Olave. Number 6 bust is DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears. I mean, another guy like Zay Flowers, hard to call him a complete bust because overall he is very consistent in fantasy. In his career, this is where DeAndre Swift has finished. He was the RB19 in last year, RB17 in 23, RB24 in 2022, RB20 in 2021, and RB18 as a rookie in 2020. So he's always finishing between RB18 or RB17 and RB24. He's always in that range. So if you're satisfied with a low end RB2 in late round 5, early round 6, then fine, like Swift is the guy for you. But to me, I want the guy once again who can win me the league, and I'm just not getting that with DeAndre Swift. The Bears' offensive line did improve. They have plenty of mouths to feed as well, and Ben Johnson comes from a team that rotated running backs in Detroit. And Swift is coming off a career low 3.8 yards per carry, and that lack of efficiency from a guy who is going to need it, it just won't cut it. Like, if Swift is going to hit and not be a bust, I feel like he has to have a very efficient year, and I just didn't see it last year. If anything, I'll just take Kyle Monangai, maybe Roshan Johnson later, and hope for the best. Like, maybe one of those two guys ends up having a big role in this offense and can be like the David Montgomery of this offense. I just don't see it with Swift. I know we had that cool like hurdle in preseason the other night, but from a fantasy standpoint, I just can't see him finishing that high, so I am just not taking him. Bust number 7, I usually like taking rookies, but in this case, I just can't get on board here with Caleb Johnson, the rookie running back of the Steelers. I just don't see a path to upside. So the Steelers are projected to be a bottom 10 offense in 2025. That's even assuming Aaron Rodgers stays healthy for a full season, which I don't know if that'll happen. His competition in the backfield is Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, guys that are pretty reliable veterans at this point, and two guys that are going to be viewed as more reliable receivers and probably pass blockers than Caleb Johnson. So I feel like third down snaps are out of the picture at least to start the year. Maybe in the second half of the year he starts getting those, but at least the first half of the year I just don't see Caleb Johnson getting third down snaps. Maybe third and short, but like third and medium, third and long, I just don't think it's happening. Then on top of it, I couldn't think of a worse situation for a rookie running back playing under Arthur Smith and having Aaron Rodgers be your quarterback. We remember how frustrating the utilization was for Bijan Robinson as a rookie under Arthur Smith, and I think it's safe to say Bijan Robinson's talent is just much better than Caleb Johnson. No offense to that guy. At best, you're probably getting like a Najee Harris type season over the past 2 years, like what he did the past 2 years. Not horrible, but not enough to make a significant difference either. To me, there's too many risks, whether it's the coaching and the offense not being good enough and Aaron Rodgers not trusting his pass blocking. And he's probably not going as high as Henderson or Harvey, but I would much rather have those guys, obviously. Like right now, he's going as the RB28, which I guess is all right, but like next to Tony Pollard, I will take Tony Pollard any day over him. Even Aaron Jones, who I'm not that big of a fan of, but I would much rather have Aaron Jones. Tyrone Tracy, at least for the first part of the year, I trust him more. I don't know, just not a fan of Caleb Johnson's situation. Like, I think it might work out for him as a player in the future, but for this year, with Rodgers and Arthur Smith, it's just, I'm staying away. So yeah, I just said his name, but number 8 is Aaron Jones of the Vikings. He turns 31 in December, and they brought in Jordan Mason via trade and gave him an extension right after, 2 years, $10 million, $7 million guaranteed. So that's not like, it's not a chump contract. That's pretty good for a backup running back, or quote unquote backup running back. Jones on carries inside the 5 last year. He had 13 attempts for -2 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a fumble lost. Jordan Mason was not much better, but not nearly as bad. 9 attempts for 3 yards, 2 touchdowns, no lost fumbles. Mason does have about 15 pounds on Aaron Jones, and Kevin O'Connell has spoken glowingly about Mason during the offseason and basically said that he kicked their ass last year and is a perfect scheme fit. Here was the Kevin O'Connell quote: "There were some potential great options in the draft. There were some other options in free agency, but Jordan Mason was a guy we played against last year. Really felt him in a zone run heavy scheme with gap complements like the Niners run. We really felt what we were looking for was right before our very eyes." Kevin O'Connell also said, quote, "Aaron Jones is at his best when we can keep him fresh," which I think is true based on what we saw last year. "We can keep him as the 1A because we've got the 1B with him, and that was Jordan Mason." So it seems like they're going to scale back on Aaron Jones' workload, which they probably should. As I just said, it makes sense. Like, when Aaron Jones started getting more work towards the second half of last year, the efficiency cratered. And I feel like Ty Chandler didn't live up to what they expected last year, so now they bring in a guy in Mason that they know what they're going to get from him. And yeah, maybe Aaron Jones has another season where it's like a ton of touchdowns and catches more passes than we thought, but him being 30 and bringing in like much better competition in the backfield, like, I'm just not for it. Like, what if JJ McCarthy sucks and the offense sucks? I just can't do it. I would still take him over Caleb Johnson once again, but I'm not targeting either guy. I'll put it that way. My 9th bust pick will be Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. And I pretty much can only say, have you seen Travion Henderson play? And that could be it, and we can move on. But I'll go through more. So as I mentioned, when talking about Henderson, he had the most fumbles for a non-quarterback last year. Highly doubt the coaching staff wants that. And of course, New England took Henderson in early round 2. This is not Mike Vrabel's guy. They can cut Stevenson for about a $3 million cap hit next year, so they really have no future tied to this guy. Stevenson in the past was attractive because he was like a PPR upside merchant with Mac Jones, but now that Mac Jones is gone, and you have Drake May, who, yeah, he can throw checkdowns, but Drake May can run too. And even some of those passing downs can go to Antonio Gibson if he makes the team, which I guess he will. Among 46 qualified running backs last year, Stevenson ranked 38th in explosive run rate, 30th in missed tackles forced per attempt, and 32nd in yards after contact per attempt per fantasy points data. The efficiency is down. I think the trust is down because of the fumbles, and he's no longer the best back on his own team. I think the only way he's worth it is if, like, God forbid, Travion Henderson had a big injury and was, like, gone for the entire year. I think in that case, we can see Ramondre live up to like a 8th or 9th round draft cost, but outside of that, I don't really see how it works, so I am avoiding Ramondre Stevenson. Number 10, this one hurts as well because it's like I've always been a fan of this guy, but Cooper Kupp is my final bust at number 10 here. I think when a smart team like the Rams moves off of you and then picks Devontae Adams over you, it's like a bit of a lateral move, but Adams is a better player at this point. I just think when a smart team like the Rams does that, it should speak volumes, and I'm going to listen. So this is the first year with Kupp where I'm totally out, and I know it's a big name. He may have led you to fantasy championships in the past, but I kind of want to avoid drafting with my heart on this one. So obviously the Matthew Stafford connection's gone. He is 32 years old. He now plays for Seattle. An offense, a passing offense, I think their run game is going to be fine. Like, I love, as I said, Kenneth Walker earlier, but I think their pass attack has more questions than answers right now. So we know about Cooper Kupp's success in the slot when he played for the Rams and had some of his best years, but the new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, almost like Gary Kubiak, Clint Kubiak, ran the second fewest 11 personnel snaps in the NFL. That, of course, is one tight end, one running back, and 3 wide receivers. So a lot of like 2 wide receiver sets, and if he's playing the second fewest amount in the NFL, that takes Cooper Kupp out of the slot, puts him on the outside where he's done it before, but if you're drafting Cooper Kupp, I'd much rather draft him knowing he's going to be like mainly a slot guy, and that's probably not going to be the case here if Kubiak sticks to what he did last year with the Saints. And when it comes to targets in that intermediate range, I think a lot of those will be going to the 23-year-old star in Jackson Smith-Njigba, not the 32-year-old veteran in Cooper Kupp. And as usual, I know I'm kind of a hypocrite because I'm on guys like T. Higgins, I'm on guys like Kenneth Walker. Injuries are definitely in question here, and I feel like with Walker and Higgins, they're right in the prime of their careers. Cooper Kupp is 32 once again, so whether it's his ankles, hamstrings, or something else, he tore his ACL a long time ago, Cooper Kupp has his concerns. And I also think he looked very cooked at the end of last year. He had one game over 65 receiving yards in the final 7 weeks. That includes the playoffs as well. So I'm just not really in on him. Like, maybe Cooper Kupp is a perfect fit here, and I'm wrong, but I am just not going to take him based on my concern for the fit, and of course, potentially him falling off. And then, of course, there's injury concerns as well. So that'll round out the bust with Cooper Kupp. Now we're on to the sleepers for 2025. Sleeper number 1, I don't even know if you can call him a sleeper anymore because he's moved up draft boards, but Ricky Pearsall. I'm a big fan of his. Even before the draft, I was like, he was one of my favorite guys, and that's another video of mine that I think did very well in terms of like trying to predict it right. I was big on Brian Thomas Jr. coming into the NFL, wasn't sure how the whole Jacksonville thing would work, but he was in that video as well. But Ricky Pearsall, another guy I was a big fan of. This year he finds himself in a very ideal situation, now a full year removed from that gunshot wound, which I'm sure hampered him last year. I can't stop thinking of the final 2 games last year where Pearsall combined for 18 catches, 210 yards, and 2 touchdowns in those 2 games. He's been getting rave reviews in Niners training camp, whether it's from Brock Purdy or teammates, coaches. More importantly, Pearsall has the chance to enter 2025 as the number 1 wide receiver for San Francisco, with Brandon Ayuk on IR and Jawan Jennings dealing with a calf injury. He might play week 1. I guess he will. will, but he's missed a lot of time, and I feel like Pearsall has been a guy who throughout training camp and preseason has been like the go-to guy for this team, not named George Kittle. So right now, could be the number one wide receiver for the 49ers. And with the built-in chemistry with Brock Purdy, there's vacated targets in this offense. I believe Pearsall has a chance to have like a 70-catch, 1,000-yard type season, maybe more catches, honestly, but I think he could have a great year. I believe in the breakouts, so I am definitely looking to take Pearsall in round maybe like 7 or 8. Depends on the platform, could be later, but if it's even round 7, I don't mind it. I didn't have this guy in my sleepers list, but I feel like you have to add Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt or Bill Krosky-Merritt. Like I just didn't want to put him in here because it's just so oversaturated with content on this guy. And I'm just saying, if you're in like a league that's not too sharp and you have drafters that don't really pay attention, like just take Bill Krosky-Merritt or Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, because right now he's the starting running back for the Commanders with the Brian Robinson trade. So it's like, yeah, take that guy. Number 2 for me, Emeka Egbuka, another guy who the hype has been tremendous. When I watched him in college, I really thought this was like Amon-Ra St. Brown 2.0, like a guy who just gets open, not flashy, solid hands, and just knows where to be on the field. Like that was just how I felt with Egbuka. It's not like the most fun player to watch, but he's just a guy that he's a technician that always gets the job done. So with Chris Godwin hampered, he did avoid the IR, I think, Godwin, so that I guess doesn't really help a guy like Egbuka, but I'm still not concerned. Jaleel McLaughlin, who was supposed to be the Jalen McMillan, who was supposed to be the wide receiver 4, second-year player, so like there was a small chance of a breakout or him getting better, but he's out till week 9 or 10 with a neck injury, so that was scary. But it does give Egbuka some runway to run away with this job here. His quarterback, Baker Mayfield, is entirely sold. He said, Emeka Egbuka is an absolute stud. He's the real deal. And the fact that his competition is 32-year-old Mike Evans, who constantly has like these hamstring injuries, he might miss some time, you never know. Chris Godwin coming off that serious dislocated ankle, he had an ACL back in 2021. Can't be too confident about either one of those guys playing a full season. Even Todd Bowles, who is not a guy to really hype somebody up, he even said his football IQ is far beyond the guy coming out of college. So I can just see this guy from day one playing a ton of snaps and being the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for a good offense here in Tampa. And he was also the 19th overall pick. Like, you have that draft capital. This is not a team in the Buccaneers that needed a wide receiver. I was pretty surprised on draft day when they took him at 19, because you're thinking you have Evans, you have Godwin, you even have McMillan. So like, what the hell do you have to draft a wide receiver for in round 1? But Egbuka's that good of a player where it's like, hey, if he fell in their mind and he was that good of a player, like, you take him and you figure out the rest later. So they did. He's healthy, one of the, couple healthy guys they have, and I think he's set up to have a monster year. So I will be looking to take Egbuka for sure. Sleeper number 3, Kyler Murray. So when I saw this quote from Murray back in April, I kind of bought into him bouncing back. So he said, I do feel like I have to run more next year. I'm open to running more next year just because it's such a weapon. It's such a weapon. So he's, I guess, realizing, hey, I'm very quick. Like, I think Kyler might be the quickest player in the NFL. Not the fastest, but the quickest. Like, the guy can go 0 to 60 in like a blink of an eye. When we saw Kyler play like an MVP, he did it for like a year and a half straight. So in 2020, he finished as the quarterback 2 overall for the entire season, only trailing Josh Allen during his breakout year. And I know it's been some time, but still, 2021, the first 7 weeks of that year, he was the quarterback 3 overall, had that second half drop off that year. Like, that was another weird thing for that. Not just him, but the entire Cardinals team just limped into the playoffs, got destroyed by, I think, the Rams that year. Maybe it was San Francisco. I feel like it was in division, but whatever. So really, since the first half of 2021, we have not seen elite Kyler Murray. But I do believe in Marvin Harrison Jr. in that connection, as I mentioned Marv earlier in this video. Trey McBride, very trusted, one of the best receiving tight ends in football. And this is the 3rd year in the same offense. Whether it's a good or bad thing, I don't know, because Drew Petzig hasn't really had good reviews from Cardinals fans. But his wide receiver 1 could break out, and he wants to get back to running. I feel like I'm going to buy into him and take Kyler over guys like Jared Goff, Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, who's definitely due for some touchdown percentage regression, and a guy like Dak Prescott, who does have some injuries, of course. And I guess Dak might have a really good year because they'll pass the ball a ton, but Dak staying healthy has also been an issue. I'm just saying, if Kyler gets back to running more and the Marvin Harrison breakout does happen, like, it's going to be a value, and I think he'll be like a top 7 quarterback by the end of the year, which at that point it would be a value. So I'm definitely looking to take Kyler if the rest of your league mates are kind of fed up with this guy. I am buying into a breakout. I'll give him one more shot. He's 28 years old. Like, let's get it done. Sleeper number 4, Colston Loveland, tight end for the Chicago Bears, rookie, 10th overall pick. And as I said before, I think I said this before, we know about the history with rookie tight ends the past 2 years. Sam Laporta, tight end 1 in 2023, and then we had rookie Brock Bowers, tight end 1 in 2024. So these rookie tight ends, in the past, it used to be like, you can't draft rookie tight ends. They take a while to develop, which used to be true. But nowadays, it's like these guys come in and they're just winning people fantasy championships, so I'm just not going to be late to that party again. Ironically, one of those 2 rookie tight ends of the past 2 years, one of them played under Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Bears, and that was Sam Laporta back in 2023. This Matthew Betts tweet pretty much sums up everything. Colston Loveland had a 37.6% targets per route run in 2024. That is the highest targets per route run of a season for a tight end prospect over the last decade. This stat is from Sharp Football Analysis. Loveland was used everywhere, playing 47.6% of his snaps in the slot, 32.5% inline, and 18.6% out wide. He also had 2.67 yards per route run, which was 3rd in this class, only behind Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin Jr. At this point in the draft where Loveland goes, like, you're looking for guys that can win you a league, guys that are talented, most of the times younger, unproven. In this case, it's a rookie. He's a great dart throw. Like, if you don't get one of those top 3 tight ends in Bowers, McBride, or Kittle, I'm looking to take a guy like Loveland. Like, why the hell not? He might be a guy that breaks out, and Ben Johnson, who coached Sam Laporta, he got to Chicago and his first ever pick made. I know he's technically not the GM, but still, I'm sure he was on board. The first pick that Ben Johnson has with the Bears is a tight end, so they're going to use him a lot. I know Cole Kmet is a person that maybe we're a bit worried about, but he's been running with the 2s, so I'm not all that concerned. You take a tight end that high, he's the starter. I have no doubts about that. Number 5 for sleepers, J.K. Dobbins, a guy that was on the sleepers list last year, had himself a really good year up until that injury at the end, but I think J.K. Dobbins, if you had him last year, he was a guy you rode to the playoffs, and hopefully you found the substitution at some point. He's arguably in pretty much just as good, if not better, of a situation than last year. You're behind the Broncos offensive line, which, once again, top 5 in the league, and has a real shot to split work with RJ Harvey, and maybe even to start the year, it might be like a 60-40 split in favor of J.K. Dobbins. And while I did pick RJ Harvey, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, how the hell can these guys coexist in the same backfield? But what I would say to that is, we've seen Sean Payton's offenses do that plenty of times. Most famously in 2017, both Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara finished as top 6 running backs overall. 2 guys in the top 6 on the same team. Pretty insane stuff. It'll be hard to replicate that level of efficiency, but could Dobbins rank as the RB20 and Harvey rank in as the RB10? I think absolutely, in my opinion. So I think Dobbins, just based on where he goes, I know the injury history is strong, and he's only 26 years old. He's not that old. He's 26, turning 27 in December. And he'll also have a good chance at passing his career high of 32 receptions, which was last year. So that'll definitely help too. Like, playing in Baltimore his first few years, that did not help. They don't really pass the running backs. And then, of course, the offense last year he was in with the Chargers. They have a similar offense to what was happening in Baltimore. So just scheme-wise, this is the best chance J.K. Dobbins has to catch 40-plus passes. If he does that and rushes for over 1,000 yards and has 8 rushing touchdowns, this is a great value. So I would definitely look to take J.K. Dobbins. We all know the risk. Injuries, Achilles, ACL, all that stuff, MCL. But hey, J.K. Dobbins that late in the draft, why the hell not? Sleeper number 6, Matthew Golden. Golden put an end to the Packers' 23-year stretch of not taking a wide receiver in round 1, and you can definitely see why. Green Bay is a team that has plenty of wide receiver 2s on their team, but not an alpha. I mean, Jaden Reed's a pretty good player, but he's in the slot. He's also pretty hampered right now with an ankle or a foot injury, and he was also off the field in most 3 wide receiver sets last year. That's Jaden Reed I'm talking about. As for Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, the starters on the outside, and Christian Watson's coming back from an ACL. God knows when he'll be back. But for Doubs and Wicks, those guys, they have their moments. I know Doubs had a little run last year, and Wicks had a couple games where he was fantastic, and we thought, hey, the breakout's happening, but turns out he can't catch. Those guys are not legitimate wide receiver ones, and I think the Packers know it. It's kind of like a Buka, like they didn't have to take a wide receiver round one. It's not like we went into the draft thinking, wow, the Packers, they need a wide receiver. Like, no, it wasn't like that. I think they just got in the draft and said, hey, Matthew Golden's really freaking good. I know we have receivers, but let's just take that guy. And that's kind of how it went for Tampa as well. Golden ran a 4.29 40 at the combine, and he's not built like your typical sub 4.3 receiver. Like you're thinking guys that look like John Ross, guys like Xavier Worthy, or I know it's a different position, but like Chris Johnson back in the past, guys like that, speedsters. He's not really built like that. He's kind of stocky, honestly, Matthew Golden. He's short, he's stout, but he runs impressive routes. He's very short-handed, has elite body control, and the Packers have the talent to be a high-end offense. That's what you want. They have a gunslinger at quarterback. That combined with Golden's talent and the draft capital, I think he can be the next breakout rookie wide receiver. I even saw a catch of his today from Malik Willis. It wasn't the best placed deep ball, but of course Golden was able to position his body perfectly and make like a 40-yard catch. Guy's a terrific player, so if they give him the chance, which I think he will, I think he'll hold off guys like I don't want to say Dobbs. Like Dobbs will probably start, but I think he'll hold off Dontavian Wicks, no doubt. And Jaden Reed once again is banged up, but he only plays in the slot anyway, so I'm not that concerned about him. I think Matthew Golden will start for this team. I like this offense and I like the player, so Matthew Golden definitely a target for me. Sleeper number 7, Tyler Warren, tight end of the Indianapolis Colts. Similar to the Loveland pick, like we want to find these league-winning players late in the draft. I think Warren is another one. Warren was the 14th overall pick, so he went a little after Loveland, but he is on a team where there is no sure number one target. Like Michael Pittman had his moments. He's coming back from that broken back injury that he played through last year, but he still didn't look like Michael Pittman. Yeah, he was playing injured, and I kind of was buying into a Pittman bounce back. I don't even mind Michael Pittman as like a late round pick, but this is Tyler Warren's segment. I don't want to take away the spotlight. You have Josh Downs, who's another guy who will just only play in the slot basically. So is there a chance that Tyler Warren leads the Colts in targets? I think absolutely. This was an Adam Levitan tweet on August 17th. The Colts starters played 35 snaps in the preseason, and Warren played 34 of them. So all but one snap. He will be the tight end one. There's no doubt about that. This is not like a rookie who has to work himself up the depth chart. None of that crap. He is the week one, day one, starting tight end playing 90+% of snaps. And for me, just from a fantasy standpoint, I did like Warren's film more than Colston Loveland. And I know more people like Loveland, but I personally prefer Warren. So I know people that are way smarter than me will prefer Colston Loveland. I get that. But just when I watched him, I was like, I see more yards after catch upside with Tyler Warren. So if I'm on the clock and it's between Loveland and Tyler Warren, I probably would take Tyler Warren. It might be a very cold take looking back on this, but in the moment, I'm taking Tyler Warren. The guy had 103 receptions in college last year. That's an insane number. I think that was like top 3 in all of college football last year. He's a guy who, yes, he's 6'5", 255, 256, whatever you want to call it, but he runs routes like he runs routes like he's 240 or something. He just does not look like he should be running routes that crisp for a guy that size. Then you throw on his yards after catch ability. And yeah, as much as I don't love Daniel Jones, I actually dislike him very much, but he's a guy that probably is a better quarterback in terms of passing in the intermediate than Anthony Richardson. So the quarterback change helps. And we saw Daniel Jones in the past with guys like Evan Engram or guys like Daniel Bellinger, even the first half of the year with Darren Waller in 2023. Like, he looked good with those guys, so I see no reason why Tyler Warren can't be a league winner. I think he'll definitely be a top 10 tight end. He's not being drafted like it, so it doesn't make sense to me. Sleeper number 8, Bashal Tutin of the Jacksonville Jaguars. At first, I really wanted to have Travis Etienne on my teams, but I couldn't do it. When I came into, looking at the rankings for this year, I was like, where's Travis Etienne? I'm going to pick 100. He's still not there. I'm like, this is a guy that went in the second round last year. But now I see why. The hype for Bashal Tutin is pretty up there. It's maybe not like a Buka level, but he's being hyped up a lot. This has been said before, but if you haven't, I have to say this. When the Jaguars' new GM, James Gladstone, went for his second interview, I think it was, with the Jaguars, he's interviewing for a freaking job here. He brought up Bashal Tutin's name in the interview. Like, when have you ever heard of a guy going for a job interview as a GM and bring up this guy that ends up being a 4th round pick as a guy like he wanted to get? That speaks volumes, and they're going to use him. I know they have a pretty crowded backfield with ETN, and you have Tank Bigsby, guys that were already here when the old regime was there, they're not their guys. Like Tank Bigsby is not a James Gladstone guy. He's not a Liam Cohen guy. Same goes for Travis Etienne. And Tootin himself is very talented. He ran a 4.32 40. He ranks top 10 in career avoided tackle rate versus Power 4 conferences. That's according to Jacob Gibbs. And the preseason film backs it up. He has not had a run. He has not had a negative run yet in preseason. He's had like 30 plus carries. They either go forward or at the line of scrimmage. The guy does not lose yards. He's broken off big plays. And it's really difficult at this point in the draft to find a league-winning running back, but if you're going to do it, you have to attack these ambiguous backfields like Jacksonville, because there's three guys, Bigsby, Etienne, and Tootin, all going in like the same area. You have to pick your guy. And for me, I'm picking the guy who the GM once again brought up the guy's name in the interview, and the other two guys weren't even drafted by this regime. So I'm going with Tootin. It might take maybe till the second half to really reap the benefits of that. But at some point, I think they're going to want to fully turn to him. He's a talented 4th round pick, 23 years old. Team loves him. Why not? Number 9, I might hate myself for this one in a year, but Trevor Lawrence. I'm going Trevor Lawrence. I just can't seem to quit on the guy for some reason. I'll give him one more chance, kind of like Kyler Murray to get one more chance. He's a guy that, for me, passes the eye test. I know it has not been great for him lately, but I just watched Trevor Lawrence, and it's like, it's there. Like, I just don't know why they can't get out of him, but it's there. You have a new offensive coordinator, new scheme. Liam Cohen was awesome with the Buccaneers last year. And there's a couple things that really intrigue me with Trevor Lawrence this year. First off is the potential rushing upside. Before last year, Baker Mayfield, who of course Liam Cohen was coaching last year in Tampa, Baker's career high in rushing yards per game was 10.3. That was in 2020 with Cleveland. Last year for Baker, it spiked all the way up to 22.3 rushing yards per game with Liam Cohen. Trevor Lawrence can already somewhat run, and I love Baker Mayfield, but Trevor Lawrence is definitely a better athlete. And right now, Trevor Lawrence's highest rushing yards per game in his career is 18.1. With Liam Cohen, I could see T-Law rushing for at least 25 yards per game, which for the full season would bring him to 425 rushing yards. So you add that, you add the new coaching, and a Jaguars offense that in my opinion should be better. Liam Cohen, as I mentioned, did some amazing things in Tampa last year. I think he comes over to Jacksonville, he gives the entire offense a boost. You have Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver 1, a guy that's an absolute stud, a big breakout candidate. Like if you're picking somewhere like 10th or 11th overall, I would definitely take Brian Thomas Jr. Travis Hunter, who might be the best wide receiver in this draft. And it does seem like they're going to put him at wide receiver a lot. So Travis Hunter, like he might be a good pick low-key in fantasy anyway. So take Travis Hunter. I'm just personally buying into this Jacksonville offense. I know you'd rather have a guy in year 2 of an offense. I know it's year 1 for Jacksonville here, but I think things are setting up nicely here for Trevor Lawrence and some of these guys on this team to have good seasons, whether it is Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr., now I mentioned Trevor Lawrence. Like I think these guys can have a really nice year. Like Jacksonville, you're looking for a team that might be like the sleeper offense that people aren't expecting to be great, but can be great. Maybe not great, but really good, like top 10. I think Jacksonville can be that team. So I want to attack them because right now the market is like looking at Jacksonville like they're a shitty team, which I guess they should. They've been that for a while. But obviously I want to get them early while other people are off Jacksonville. I want to draft their guys and hopefully that comes true. So we'll see if Trevor Lawrence does in fact make people respect him in 2025. The final sleeper, number 10, final player we're going over, Cedric Tillman, wide receiver of the Cleveland Browns. Tillman was an early 3rd round pick. I think it was 74th overall back in 2023. We saw a mini breakout last year before he had a concussion in week 12, but he put together a 4-week stretch where he averaged 6 receptions, 75 yards, and 0.8 touchdowns per game. I know it's a little scary to buy into a guy who did miss 6 games last year. After that concussion, he never came back, and he really did nothing in his career up until that 4-game stretch, but he did get the playing time, and maybe he just figured things out. This was after they traded Amari Cooper, so it opened up time for Cedric Tillman to get some snaps, and he performed, right? Like, that's all you can ask for. You give a young player an opportunity, they go out there and produce. You know, it's not his fault he was playing behind Amari Cooper the first year of his career, or first year and a half, I should say. But at this point in the draft, like, where else are you finding that kind of upside? Like, he's a very talented player, he's shown he can do it, and he should have an every down role for this Browns team. He has Joe Flacco airing out the ball, which he's no stranger to just letting it loose. And aside from Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, who the hell are the Browns throwing the ball to? Like, this could be the 3rd option in that offense, and that's someone I want to take. Someone who's talented, 25 years old, a potential year 3 breakout. Before that concussion, he was basically already broken out. So if you get that 4-game stretch from last year over a full season, you're talking about a guy that can put up over 1,000 yards and have some big spike weeks. So yeah, I could see him being like this year's Darnell Mooney as compared to what Mooney was last year with the Falcons. A wide receiver 2, an offense that, yeah, we have questions about, but still, I think he's talented. I want to take a shot on Tillman if he's falling in drafts. I wanted to see where he was being drafted. He is the wide receiver 65 right now. That's just ridiculous to me. He's going after DeAndre Hopkins. He's going after Marvin Mims. He's going after Adam Thielen, Kyle Williams. He's going right before Joshua Palmer, Jack Besh. Like, please, give me Cedric Tillman any day over those guys, even the guys that are like way ahead of him. Like, I will definitely find myself taking a lot of Cedric Tillman because I just feel like for some reason we forgot about the guy. It's not his fault. He got a concussion that kept him out for the rest of the year. All I know is when he was out there and given the playing time, he showed breakout potential. So I want to take that chance. And if he does stay healthy for a full year, this could end up being a great draft pick late in the draft. Anyway, that will do it. I know I didn't go over every player, and there's probably some other things I could have talked about, but if you have questions in the comments, I guess let me know. I'll get back to you guys on that one if you want my opinion. If you don't, all good. So yeah, hopefully this video goes as well as last year's. I was very happy looking back on that one, how it went. So good luck to you guys in your 2025 drafts. I know I have a couple or probably 3 drafts coming up next week, so that time is coming. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.